Okay, so Unit 8.3 for you today. So technology can all go away unless, because you got your PowerPoint up front and me over here. 8.3, this is going to be part 1 and 2 for you, so you can label that at the top. We're going to squish yours together. The other class still hadn't finished Russia, so we had to kind of split things up. Unit 8.3 is going to talk about what is the outcome of all of this mass politics. What is going to result from all of these new leaders and new unification? And after the Industrial Revolution, we are going to see what is called new imperialism. So imperialism is defined as the control of one people by another. And this control can be either political, economic, or cultural, or all of these things combined. Okay? So they can be all of them. I like to think that this time period is going to be more political and economic, but there are going to be some instances we're going to see where people are going to be like, no, you have to abide by our customs or by our religion. One of the biggest cultural things I would see now is the fuss that's made, like on imperialism now in other nations, is the fuss made over a Big Mac in other countries as those have made it over there. That's a cultural imperialism. By imposing an industry like that somewhere else, that has changed the culture there or kind of forced it upon the people there. But we're going to see more political and economic control in this time period, however. So just to refresh your memory, we've already talked about old imperialism. Old imperialism had occurred between 16th and 18th centuries. And what old imperialism just means, I put a whole lot of writing on this page just for those of you like it spelled out, but it just pretty much means that European nations came in, but they didn't completely take over. So if you think about it, as in we talked about the trading posts or the ports that were set up around Africa, those that will be set up in the Atlantic and the Pacific, we're going to see that that's old imperialism. That's like, I need a fort there, or I need a military base there, or I need a place to dock my boat so they can stop on their travels. But they didn't come over and take everything over. So like good examples of that are the Netherlands trading post in Indonesia and what is modern day Sri Lanka. Some of the trading posts along Africa, to get all the way down around the Cape of Good Hope. Those things we've already talked about. The New World, however, is the only exception. The New World is actually what we would kind of see more as new imperialism, because they come in, they take over. Think of like the Spanish colonies in South America and even some of our colonies in North America. The New World is the exception to that old imperialism. And it's going to be what people kind of focus on as they move into new imperialism. So that is all of page 1. That's just kind of a review. So the other thing I want to draw your attention to within this topic of imperialism is that at the same time that we have people colonizing or creating these empires, we are going to also see people leaving Europe. So we're going to have a lot of migration or immigration. We're going to see 60 million people leave Europe between 1815 and 1932. You need to know the countries from which most of them came. So where it says Great Britain, Ireland, Italy, and Germany, you might see a question in your near future that says all of these nations except this country were big suppliers of new immigrants to other places. Okay? So you need to know Great Britain, Ireland, Italy, and Germany. Not to spell it all the way out for you. They're going to be our greatest source of migration in this time period. Migrants are going to go primarily to European inhabited areas. And so this migration becomes an impetus for new imperialism. It's going to be a lot easier to create an empire, isn't it, if you already have a bunch of million of your own people from Europe over there? And so we're going to see the immigration is going to play into this new imperialism as well. And so that brings us to new imperialism, and that's the topic of today's discussion. So between 1880s in Africa, we're going to see the start of new imperialism. We're going to see it even a little bit earlier in Asia, but we're going to save Asia for last. In our lecture today, because there won't be as much of the material on the AP Euro exam. So, in 1800, Europeans control about 7% of the world's territory. By 1914, they control about 84%. Yeah, write the word huge here, or oh my God, as Jayla would say. This is huge. They go from 7% of the world's territory to by 1914, 84%. And we're not talking about every European nation. We're talking about a select few. So that's a big deal.
You talking about ain't the biggest Britain?
France actually holds the most land. British, most powerful.
How France hold the most land?
They hold the most land, but it's not the best of the land. It's not like the good stuff, as we're gonna see. India is part of the British Empire.
So this is the biggest now.
Not land wise. Biggest powerful.
Okay.
Yeah. Where did I leave off? So 84%, this is huge. I wrote this to remind it to say the word huge, capital letters here. I always, and if I start humming this or something when we have a break or you're writing something, I always think about when I'm teaching this part, like Pinky and the Brain theme song. So what are we doing tonight? The same thing we do every night, trying to take over the world. Because it's pretty much what they do, from 7% to 84% from 1800 to 1914, so 114 years. The British Empire is going to control about 25% of the world's population by 1900 and 20% of the world's territory. So that answers your question right there about how powerful. This visual up here is... I really like it. It's really interesting. I wish you could see it better if you want to go back and watch this on the podcast. But it just shows that at this time, Britain is going to get the nickname, the empire upon which the sun never sets. And so this is showing, the time zones. And because the British Empire is so vast, there is never not one part of Britain's empire at this time where the sun is not shining. So it's a really cool concept, and so they get this nickname, that empire upon which the sun never sets. And so this shows you, this graphic here will show you each part of the empire when the sun is on it. So I think that's a really neat concept. So if you were in the British Empire and you were traveling, you could possibly hop and travel and never see the sun set. So, you can now, speaking of travel around the world. So this becomes a big thing. We have enough railroads and sea travel now that by railroad and sea you can travel around the entire globe, which is something that people hadn't really fathomed before. And this is cool because we're going to kind of see tourism. If you're a British citizen, you got all kinds of places to visit now, all kinds of places you're hearing about, all kinds of places where you're welcome and where you might have a job. And so this becomes something new. And so what do you think is probably, we're going to talk about major causes right now, but there's one thing that kind of goes underneath all of these causes of imperialism. How are you able to go in everywhere and take everything? What is something that you must have?
Violence.
Violence, an army, and what is the... I'm going to say the word. I guess I'll just say it. What is the weapon of violence in the army? Guns. You got guns. So guns are going to be the driving force behind this imperialism. You ever heard Guns, Germs, and Steel? The book, yeah. I think Miss Groupie and them used a lot in AP World, right? So, good series, but it's true. We've had the Industrial Revolution. They got guns. Except for the poor, sorry, Maddie, the Italians are going to have some struggles in Ethiopia. But they'll be back.
Yeah. Yes, my dad's Ethiopian. He'll go on and on.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're going to hit that today.
World War II?
Yeah, till Mussolini decides,
God.
yeah.
You know, the tank drivers would surrender
Yeah.
if they get surrounded. Oh my
Yes. Maddie and Naja, face off. Italy.
It's just,
Naja was like, can we please skip this part of the lecture, Mrs. T? I have heard enough. I think this is the most excitement I've gotten over the discussion of the Italians' loss in Ethiopia. This is great. Yeah. Well, Naja, he can just recount his childhood stories now of what he's been told his whole life. His nighttime stories were all about. So, before we get to the main causes for imperialism, and there are going to be 4. So 4 main causes. I like even numbers. It always makes me happy when I have even numbers to talk about. I also like that the word main has 4 letters in it, so I can always the 4 main causes of the imperialism are main. So there's 4 of them. So before we can talk about that, I want you to put a little star next to number 3. Britain's control of Egypt is going to become our model of what people think new imperialism is supposed to look like. We're going to talk about the problems and the benefits to that. The English are going to consider themselves a little more gentlemanly than other Europeans and more enlightened in the way they take over people with guns. We're going to see, not in every case, but sometimes. So, first major cause of new imperialism is going to be a reaction to the Industrial Revolution. It's a search for new markets and for raw materials. What I mean by new markets is, so you've industrialized and you are making like every kind of shirt like you can think of. And pretty soon you realize you're making so many products because you're so industrialized, you don't have enough people to sell them to. And so you need to go take over new people and say, hey, you Gandhians, you need this kind of shirt and I'm going to make you buy them from me. And so you need new markets. That's what I mean by that. But you also need raw materials to keep industrialism going. You do not have enough to sustain it without these raw materials. And we're going to see some of these materials and where they are in Africa, because Africa is going to be where we focus first. So you need both of these things. You might write here, did you guys study in World the 3 Gs? The 3 Gs at what? God, glory, and gold. Okay, this also applies to new imperialism. These are driving factors. You can fit everything under God, glory, and gold. Yeah. So when you think about new imperialism, it still applies. Fortunately, that mantra is going to go all the way from the age of export forever. Definitely in new imperialism. And so this would be the gold part, because examples of raw materials that are going to be found that are going to cause imperialism, especially in Africa, are ivory and rubber in the Congo. It's going to be the first place we kind of see hit. Diamonds in South Africa, cocoa in Niger, tea in China, and Ceylon, which is modern-day Sri Lanka, cotton in India, which is going to be Britain's baby, or jewel in the crown, and spices from Indonesia. And so those are the supplies that the imperialists are after. So our next cause is going to be God. Missionary work. And this is one of my favorite stories, because when I was a little kid, I thought this guy was fictional. Like, no lie. When I was about middle school, that I thought my history teacher was like pulling my leg. So I'd always heard Dr. Livingston, I presume, and I just thought it was just like a fairy tale. But it's not. It's about a real guy. So what we have happen is missionary activities are going to happen. They believe, remember, we've had revivalism. Remember on the AP Prep, a lot of you answered that it was a time of secularism, but it was actually the 1870s were a time of religious revival. It was a reaction to realism. It was a reaction to the questioning of the church. And so we're going to see religious revivalism is not going to be just good enough at home. You need to go share it with the world. This is evangelism. I can never say that word until the third time. This is where you're like, I am so excited that I found the Word of God. I must go tell others. And so they're going to start to make missionary trips into these imperial empires. We're going to see this strong religious revivalism are going to be more successful in sub-Saharan Africa, so below the Sahara Desert. So picture Africa in your mind below the Sahara Desert. It's like a double entendre, but below the Sahara. I get to say desert because I am Western, and that's what I'm going to do. And so sub-Saharan Africa, and then in Asia, and Islamic North Africa. And so keep that in mind. The Islamic population has a hold of Northern Africa still. From the empire. And so missionary activities not going to be so well received there, Christian-wise anyway. So that's why we're going to be kind of heading. The British going to end up very much in South Africa. Belgium's going to end up in the Congo region, and it's going to be more successful there. So why the Islamic Empire's already got a foothold, very strong. So Dr. David Livingstone. It's a Scottish Christian missionary. There's all kinds of pictures of him up there, even a movie poster from the old movie. But he's a doctor. He's also a very godly man. And so he decides, like, while I go and I help with medicine, your tooth hurts? Have you heard about God? Like, he's going to spread his medicine, but also use it as a foundation to talk about religion. And he is going to be the first white man to do humanitarian and religious work in the South Central Africa. And he is going to be pretty widely followed for all of these years. From like the 1850s to 1873, he is going going all over South and Eastern parts of Africa on a journey. He goes all the way from the tip of South Africa all the way up to the equator. So if you can kind of like picture him like really traveling out there, really spreading medicine in the Word of God. People are following his journey. We have newspapers and telegraphs and all of these things now. And he becomes like this. I think this is why when I was a little kid I thought he was fictional. He becomes like this character. And people are like, what's Dr. Livingston doing today? What new peoples did he encounter? What new things is he seeing that we've never seen before? And he sends letters back about his journeys. Well, his letters stopped showing up. From 1866 to 1869, his letters stop altogether. And so people jump to, like, people internationally are getting, like, freaked out. What's happened to Dr. Livingston? He's not writing back. And they want people to go look for him. He's just become, like, this national or this hero. Just a little thing to let you know, he's found the Zambezi River, and he also names Victoria Falls because he's a Scottish doctor. He names it for Queen Victoria, and so they weren't called the Victoria Falls until this time. I've heard from people that have seen them that they make Niagara Falls look like chump change. So just a note to you, if you were ever asked on Jeopardy why the Victoria Falls were called what they were and when, here you go. Shout out to me if you win some money.
Just to make Niagara Falls look like.
I mean, I've heard that it makes, that's what I've heard from people that have been there, that it's just like more breathtaking than Niagara Falls. I have not personally been there, so I'm going on word of mouth. I don't know when my trip to Africa will be, but I hope it's on my bucket list. So Dr. Livingston is missing. So who do they send? Some really qualified, like, tracker or something? No, they send a journalist from the, let's see, what news? New York Herald. And he's going to go out, and this might seem like a silly question, but so you're this journalist for the New York Herald, and you're looking for Dr. Livingston, who's a Scottish missionary, and he is in Africa. What do you think you're going to ask people when you get there? Have you seen a white guy? He's like me. And so he's going to go up to places and go, have you seen a white guy? And they're staring and no, I'm the first one you've seen. Okay. And so he's going to go asking these questions, and he gets some people going, yeah, he went like that way. And he's going to show up, and the first thing he does, because it's the first white guy either one of them has seen there in Africa, Dr. Livingston, I presume, that's where that line comes from. He walks up to him, and it's kind of like ha, 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 who else could you be? Two white guys here. Dr. Livingston, I presume. He finds him, and while he's there, he also notices that the Congo has a whole bunch of resources that other white guys might want. And so he writes the king, he is going to end up writing the King Leopold, the King of Belgium, and he's going to say, hey, like this Congo region has a bunch of stuff you want. And we're going to see that play out in a minute, okay? Yes?
So why did he stop writing? Like, why did he disappear for the longest time?
For the rest of the story, I think that he just got involved in his work, and I don't think that he really knew, because he was kind of isolated, that people were following him, were like going to freak out. He had just been sending his letters back to colleagues. Like, he didn't know that he'd become like this, like, Indiana Jones of the, yeah. And he'd gotten so far south, too, that there wasn't a lot of ways to get letters back. Yes, sir?
So, like, H.M. Stanley was from the New York Herald, you said?
Uh-huh.
Does that make him American?
I'm not sure if he's an immigrant or if he was working for that newspaper correspondence. All I know about him is he found. I can certainly look up. That'd be something.
My question is, like, so if he found him, why would he write the King of Belgium?
Yeah,
Take the Congo.
it's an odd situation, except for someone who wants to Google right now. I don't really know the contact between. Like I said, as a child, one of my history teachers in middle school actually said, missionary interaction in South Africa, mentioned Livingston. I was like, the Livingston, I presume, movie guy, is what I said as a little kid. And she's like, it was a real guy. So I don't know the connection between Belgium, unless it was a Belgium immigrant maybe to work for the New York Herald. He got knighted. Okay, so that adds to the confusion. So he got knighted, but from corresponding with Belgium, New York Herald.
Yeah, he's an immigrant.
Okay, I figured 60 million going to.
Participated in the Civil War, joined the Confederate Army.
Ooh.
claimed it for him. It was just like, this is Belgium.
So he just was like, boom, Belgium.
Yeah, I guess.
All right. Yeah, so maybe I guess there wasn't really a story to tell. It was just kind of a, yeah. Boom, Belgium is the first name that came into my, maybe he went down the alphabet. Like, America, nah. Amsterdam, no. All right. So, that brings me back to third reason, right? We're on third. Second was God, missionary. Third is military. Third is glory. Third is all of these things because it's your new military and naval bases. Yes. It is your new naval bases to protect your interests against other European powers. Yes.
Are we going off the 3Gs or main?
Kind of both together. Main and 3Gs.
Apparently, he was approached by Leopold II.
Oh, Leopold's like, hey, white guy that's all the way in Africa, what's there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, the king organized some sort of international scientific thing for him to be researching the Congo. One of those fake bring me back some bug sample things, and yeah. All right, cool. Thank you guys. So, new military and naval bases because now you've claimed this land, or you've had Stanley come through and put this is for Belgium. You've claimed it, but you need to be able to protect it, and this is going to come into play later. The British are going to be concerned about the French and German land grabs. The German are just unified, and they're going to be running behind the British and French, so they're going to try to pit Britain and France against each other. So this new imperialism is going to open up the doors for possible conflicts within the continent of Europe, and so keep that in mind. This is the glory part. This is which army, which nation is the strongest. Germany and Italy, you might put a reminder here, have just unified, so they're going to be running a little bit behind on imperialism. It's going to hold them up just a little bit. And so number 4, our last main idea, and also going with glory, is ideology. So part of the reason spurring this imperialist nature is we have social Darwinism that we've talked about. Social Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest ideology proposed by Herbert Spencer is going to rationalize the conquest of these areas. It is going to say not only can it happen, but it should happen. We are better than them. We are industrialized. We are more successful. We are more fit. We are more civilized. And they're going to take these ideas and apply them to countries. So since I've had an industrial revolution, I am better, I am more civilized than you, and therefore I should be able to take over your area. Also sometimes used as a patriarchal position. So do you know what the word patriarch means? Yeah, so father. So maybe not as much but you're less civilized than me. You're like a child. I need to take care of you. You need to listen, eat your broccoli. You need to listen to what I have to say. So sometimes used in this aspect too. So it's going to justify military superiority. This is where we get the poem White Man's Burden. You may have seen this poem remade into the Brown Man's Burden. It has been parodied several times. There's still an argument going on whether this was patronizing imperialism or whether it was condemning. Whether at the time, because he was a British citizen living in India, so watching imperialism go on. There are some people that said he very much wanted to use it to say the negatives of it, but I read the poem, and the way it was taken at the time, I believe, is very survival of the fittest. His name is Rudyard Kipling. You may recognize him from one of your favorite Disney movies, the book, The Jungle Book. He also wrote that and The White Man's Burden. So, how could the guy that wrote The Jungle Book be all nasty racist, right? No. But it was taken and used as racist and patronizing view that preached the superior Westerners had an obligation. You don't just need to it's your job as a good white Christian guy to come in and take care of these poor uncivilized brutes. Like, it's your job, it's your burden, it's something you should carry. I highly encourage, if you haven't read it, I knew a lot of you did, so I didn't print out for you, to read it. And also some of the parodies are very interesting about how this concept is still kind of being used today. So he's going to compare this imperialism to a heavy weight that the white man should carry, and use it in this dividing up of Africa. So that is, these images here are two pretty popular. They're the same. So pretty popular political cartoons. So you have, like, the United States will later enter imperialism. And so carrying what would be their burden, you have the British carrying their burden, all their different parts of the empire, zoomed in on the British guy here. And what I like you to note about these political cartoons is they never make the ones being carried seem quite as human as those doing the carrying. They kind of, you know, if you ever got a caricature drawn of you, that's kind of what they are here. And so being the burden to these imperialist nations, so making it look as if it's not a choice. And that's what this poem will be used to do. So keep that in mind as we start carving up Africa. So that brings us to page 4. How are we going to scramble up? How are we going to cut up Africa? So by 1880, Europeans controlled 10% of Africa. By 1914, they will control all except Liberia and Ethiopia. Circle, highlight, write, need to know. You may see a question in your near future that says the Europeans held all but these two areas in Africa by 1914. Yep, Liberia and Ethiopia. This what? Why is that? Liberia, we're going to see, is going to be kind of a protectorate area. Ethiopia, the Ethiopians just kind of kick the Italians' butts. They're going to be the only ones to fail at taking a piece of Africa. Yeah. We're going to see kind of a protectorate area because the United States is going to be a little bit involved there, but we're not imperialistic yet. This reach into the African interior, this scramble for Africa, I like to compare it to a feeding frenzy. Like, everybody hurry up and grab your piece. You know, like, if you know there's not, like, enough pie at this dinner and you know you want a piece, like, everybody's, like, launching towards the container. Yeah, that's a good comparison. Now, that's a good one. They're really, like, hungry, like, everybody's like, I got to get the most. So this is going to start with Belgium taking control of the Congo because Mr. Leopold has got, Mr. Stanley down there planting a Belgian flag and saying, hey, there's some good stuff here. So Belgium is going to be the first. It's in the middle. And then we're going to see Britain take control of Egypt in the early 1880s. And then we're going to talk about the Berlin Conference. So this piece right here is just my outline of the order we're going to talk about things. So if you like things short and simple and you want the order or chronology timeline of the scramble for Africa, it is point 1, 2, and 3 here. If you want to circle this is the timeline of all of the events I'm talking to you about. If you like to keep it simple, stupid, kiss. If you like that, then that is for you. So, point number 1, the Congo. The Congo is our first place to talk about. We've already talked about it with Stanley and Livingston. And so the Congo is going to become a colony of Belgium. But I want you to write colony...
The ones underneath. Is it
Uh,
under B or A?
Under A. Uh-huh. It's the timeline of the whole part of this lecture. Yep. So, letter B goes with number 1. So we're talking about the Congo. It becomes a colony of Belgium, but not just a colony of Belgium. It becomes a personal colony for King Leopold. Like the Belgian people, the nation, have nothing to do. It's his personal property. Like Johnny Depp owns an island. Like this is his King Leopold's island. And so in 1879, at the behest of Leopold II, British-American journalist H.M. Stanley, like we talked about, established trading stations in the Congo and signed treaties with African chiefs that gave Leopold control over the Congo. These were not treaties that were very well written for the benefit of the Africans there. They were very much manipulative, okay? They didn't quite line up everything that they were expecting. We know that they were taken advantage of, okay? Not the first or last time. And so in 1884 to 85, the Berlin Conference, which we're going to talk about last in this session, recognized the region as the Congo Free State and as Leopold's personal possession. So the conference that we're going to talk about in just a minute, that's called together to make decisions on the rules, like there should be rules for being racist and nationalistic and taking people's stuff, but there's going to be rules. So we'll see that they'll give it just to Leopold. It's his own personal territory. This is where they start to draw lines in Africa, and so they start to like draw this line and say, you are a member of, this is the Congo, and we're going to draw a line that's going to be the territory or border, and we're going to stick you in here with a bunch of people you hate, like people you weren't, tribes you weren't getting along with. We're going to see, especially in Uganda, this is going to cause problems, still causing problems, over people who did not get along being lumped together as a nation. The Hutus and the Tutsis are going to be two groups that's going to happen for in Uganda. Mm-hmm. Okay, like, so that kind of issue going on here. So as it pertains to the Congo, King Leopold, not such a happy, gracious king in the Congo. The indigenous peoples are going to be treated very savagely. So if you look at these pictures up here, what's going to happen is King Leopold, what he is in the Congo for, what Stanley saw is rubber trees. We have just had the bicycle craze. We are on the rise into the automobile craze. So you need what? Tires, okay? We need tires from rubber. And rubber isn't just one of those things that you can, I'll plant a tree and get rubber tomorrow, because rubber comes from a tree. There's the tree up in the top right-hand corner, and they're draining the sap that's going to be used for rubber. It has to grow 15 years before you can slash it for rubber. So you can't just be like, woohoo, trees, and then cut down. It's not like that. But they're already mature trees in the Congo. And so Leopold needs a workforce there. He only has about, because it's Belgium, he only has about 19,000 troops to send down to the Congo to keep things orderly. And so what he decides to do is he kidnaps all of the women and children of the men. And he is going to send them out with a quota of rubber that they have to collect. And if they come back with that quota met, they get their women and children back and their work time is over for that season, and they get to return with their families and that. If they do not meet the quota, and I don't know if you can see these pictures as big as I want, but you may notice that these two individuals are missing a part of an appendage. If you came back and you had not met the quota, your left hand was cut off. As a sign to others of what would happen, but also as a reminder, because you're going to be sent back out to work for the next season, and if you didn't come back with that next quota,
So then you're just a subject.
yeah, and then
work.
and then your family's not going to survive, but it'll be a slow, painful death for your family. Yes, ma'am.
Well, in my African American literature class, we learned, like, we were watching Roots, and they cut off, like, the big toe slaves. Like, if they try to, like, run away, because then, like, they'll chop the top of your toes off because you can't run, like, you need to run back. Yeah, so, like, you'll just, like, so, like, basically, you'll just be stuck working instead of, like,
Yeah.
trying to run away.
And that's a really good point, because they can't do anything else now either. Also, they can't provide for their families without going out to look for rubber for the king as well. But what this causes, and I didn't expect this to go the other way in the other class, I was like, so what can't happen if the children and women are all kidnapped and the husbands are made out working?
More kids.
That's where they went, and my brain totally didn't go there. I was thinking, like, in the Congo, you would need somebody to be back planting and hunting and gathering. So, if the women and children are kept captive, and the men are away having to do this, and they don't get any of the money from this, there's nobody raising food for any of the indigenous peoples, and so we have massive starvation. When King Leopold comes into the Congo, population 20 million. When he will have it taken away from him for inhumane treatment and given to Belgium, 10 million people are left. 20 million to 10 million people. Because of starvation and the treatment of the working for the rubber.
When did it get taken away?
It's 1908. It's taken away and made into a Belgian.
And when did you get it?
He is going to get it in 1879. 23 years. Yeah.
You got 20, you killed 10 million people in 23 years.
Yes, sounds like, oh.
Yeah. So, King Leopold. not such a happy thing. And you know what? It wasn't even money for like another. You can't even like rationalize. It was like, well, it helped out all these other people because you know a lot of the imperialists would say, but I'm helping the greater good. It was just King Leopold. That's my political cartoon down there. Like Belgium is his, or the Congo is his baby. All the money went to him. He made $1 billion in today's standard of money in the 23 years there that went to nobody but himself. Okay, yeah.
So we
So-
co-opted a million people for $1 billion
Yes.
in person.
Yeah, $1 billion of this. I don't know how to do that. I'm not a math teacher, but that equation to like go back and figure out what it would have been worth then, but it was worth $1 billion today. Like I can't even think about the equation of like taking off, inflation and all of that, but $1 billion today. Yeah, so pretty bad. And so what happens is that his incursion into the Congo is going to raise serious humanitarian issues. Like people are gonna be like, not so sure that's what they meant by survival of the fittest, because they were pretty fit till you cut their hand off and like starved them to death. Okay, so we're going to start to see questions raised. And Britain conquering Egypt is going to raise questions too, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So that's our next one. Britain is going to take control of Egypt in 1883, and they are going to become the model for new imperialism. They're going to, at this time, a Turkish general, because the Ottoman Empire had held Egypt and still holds, the Turkish general Muhammad Ali had made Egypt into a strong and virtually independent state by 1849. So they're feeling pretty good about their control over Egypt, hanging on there. But what happens is they start to see everybody westernized and modernized, and like, ooh, we need to do that. And so his son, and I need to change my slide here for you. Yeah, his son is going to try to westernize him. It's going to cost a ton of money. They're going to borrow this money. They're going to borrow this money from France and Britain, most of it from Britain. They are not going to be able to pay it back. What happens to you when you are not able to pay back a debt? Yeah, you don't pretty much have a say over what's going on anymore. So Britain says, oh, that's too bad. We knew the whole time when they lent this much money they weren't going to get it back. Oh, sorry. We'll just come in to protect you because you're really weak right now. We would hate for somebody else to come in and like trample on you while you're down. So they come in and they say, we'll be your protectorate. So you need to know what this word protectorate means. Britain is going to buy the significant portion of shares for the Suez Canal and begin managing it and declare Egypt their protectorate. Protectorate is a territory that is protected by a third party with obligations. Okay. So it's protectorate is an area that is controlled by a third party. So in this case, it would be Egypt controlled by Britain with obligations by Egypt. So Egypt is obligated to let them use the Suez Canal. They are obligated to let them have the profits of that. They are obligated to let them have as many military bases and as many people as they want there. Yes?
So, like, for America is like, are we like protectors of like Puerto Rico and Japan?
We're going to talk about that in just a second. Not over Japan, but we're going to...
Used to though, from Japan?
Japan's going to be actually very imperialistic. You're thinking maybe Taiwan that was a
No, it's
protectorate?
like afterwards, like after World War II.
Economically wise, but not quite the same as a protectorate here. Still very much independent.
Yeah,
What
but
about modern
now
day?
they're like trying to
Modern day
take
Israel?
one.
Modern day Israel? I don't know if that would be considered as much as a protectorate as this because you get a lot of say. But I mean, but obligation, yeah. I don't know as far as in this sense, but I think you could definitely argue it in certain senses. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I think that's my cup.
Pink cup?
Yeah, thank
Yep,
you.
you're welcome. All right, so protectorate. Okay, oh, and so this is the part where Britain becomes the model for how other people should do it. This is where other people can go, oh, that seems to work. Like you just make them think that they need you and you're protecting them and you're like a parent to them and all these things. And it's going to sound a lot more friendly than like, take all your women and children and cut your hands off. It's going to look a lot better, okay? It's good.
Banks with credit.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, banks the credit.
People who they know they can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Very good analogy here. So, the main reason Britain wants Egypt, what do you think the key reason is going to be? That Suez Canal, right? Pictures all the way up there. So the Suez Canal is the key motive for Britain doing all of this, okay? They just weren't wanting a desert vacation spot for British people. They want the Suez Canal. This is going to be a shortcut, if you can see from that top map up there on the right, a shortcut to their jewel of the British Crown, India. They're also going to be able to have some friendly access from their lake, the Mediterranean. So all of this is working out very well for them. And so once they have taken Egypt and they have taken the Suez Canal, they are going to focus on a less friendly, less pleasant sounding, bloody occupation of the Sudan, which is south of Egypt. And so that's where we're going to be moving next. Okay, but right now Egypt is a protectorate of Great Britain, and it'll actually be a protectorate up till 1956. So Egypt will be part of Britain's imperialist empire up till 1956. Okay, so you might have some grandparents' parents that were actually alive when it was still a
Is that the start of the October War?
of the October War. Not the exact date start, but we're gonna. I hope we're gonna get all of it.
At one point in time, they tried to take back the Suez Canal, but America intervened.
Yeah.
How long did they have India?
Oh, it's gonna be up to Gandhi. Let's see. Last year, and we're gonna get to that today.
Is it 1960?
Yeah, so late. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna only hit small parts here. So we'll be in just Britain for a little bit longer. Then, actually, we're up to the Berlin Conference, and then the British Empire and the Sudan. So what we don't get done today, so you can have work time, I have for you on video already recorded, so you can watch at your own pace. But you guys are stopping for good questions. Everything we talk about today will be on the test. All we should have left is Asia. That one question will come from. So your only homework will be to watch that video. Everything else we've already covered. It's only 30 questions multiple choice. 25 of them from 8.1 and 8.2, 5 from 8.3. And I've stopped 3 times now and said circle. All right. So the Berlin Conference, remember, this is not the Congress of Berlin. This is the Berlin Conference. Do not get them confused. Of 1884 to 1885. This is going to establish the rules of imperialism, the rules of how to enforce yourself on other people. And so the provisions for the conquest of Africa are: no imperial power could claim a territory in Africa unless it could effectively control that territory. That means if you are not strong enough to hold it with military force, somebody can take it from you, okay? So you need to be able to hold it. You need to have the manpower. Slavery and the slave trade in Africa will be terminated. This is what they're going to do to kind of make it look a little more humanitarian. Well, we're imposing ourselves on people in Africa, but let's get rid of that slave trade thing. Looks really bad here. The Berlin Conference is a reaction to try to prevent conflict between imperial nations, okay? It is their attempt to try to keep anything that's going on in Africa from starting a war on the continent, okay? Because they realize that could very quickly happen. This Berlin Conference is going to be sponsored by the German Chancellor Bismarck and Jules Ferry, and they are going to seek to prevent conflict over imperialism. It will coincide, hence Bismarck, with Germany's rise as a unified nation, and they are definitely ready to play imperialistic games. Germany is hopped up and ready to go, and we'll talk about that. They want to be part of this. They want to be involved in it. Just really what you need to know, point number 4 right here. As a result of the Berlin Conference, the scramble for Africa was on. Like, this legitimized it. This said it was okay. This said, get your troops and get to Africa because it's first come, first serve, right? And so this is like cutting up Africa. And so the British Empire is going to consider themselves the most enlightened or nice of the imperialist powers. But as we're going to see very quickly after Egypt, things are not going to go quite as swimmingly. So they had taken control of Egypt in 1883, as we just talked about. You can see above in your notes. Now they are moving south of Egypt into the Sudan. After taking control of Egypt, Britain is going to keep pushing southward, and this is where we get the battle. Sorry, I forgot to show you my pretty little look. They're cutting up Africa. It's a little party at the table. They are going to have the Battle of Omdurman, and this is going to be in 1898. So the British are pushing with their general, Horatio H. Kitchener, and they are going to defeat Sudanese tribesmen by killing 11,000 of them with machine guns. So, but they're the nice, enlightened conquerors, right? So they have machine guns. How do you get parts of Africa? With guns. They kill 11,000 Sudanese men. Only 28 Britons died. Okay, so 11,000 versus 28. We'll also see 15,000 Sudanese wounded and 5,000 taken prisoner. Okay, so a very sweeping victory over the Sudan. Very bloody. So not as enlightened as they'd like the rest of the world to think. This is then going to give us the Fashoda incident, because now Britain is still pushing. France is in Africa trying to get what they can. And so in 1898, France and Britain nearly go to war over the rest of Sudan. They both get there at the same time. And what are the rules of the Berlin Conference? First come, first served. So they're standing there looking at each other, and they're like, we were both here at the same time. They almost go to war in Africa and in the continent, but what happens is France is in the middle of that messy Dreyfus affair. So remember, we talked about the Dreyfus affair, and you will need to know this. The Dreyfus affair was one of the largest impacts on a nation building during this time, because it had discredited the Third Republic. Also, the Paris Commune was very detrimental to the French Third Republic. But because they're all caught up in this, corruptness of the Dreyfus affair and putting an innocent guy in solitary on Devil's Island, they are too busy to worry about sending troops down into the Sudan. But we almost have a war here. Because they get there at the same time. But then it's not very long before the British are going to see themselves ticking some other people off. Does anybody remember the group of people that was in South Africa? So we have the British movement, south.
South Zulu?
No, I'm not talking indigenous. Europeans. The Dutch have been in South Africa for quite some time. So now they've been there so long, it's Dutch descendants. And so we're going to see that the British is moving in to South Africa. They have a dream, not like a good dream. This is not a good one. I guess it depends on what side of it you're on. But they are going to find themselves in the Boer War of 1899 to 1902. Boer just means Dutch farmer. If you want to put that there for you, it means Dutch farmer. So it means Dutch farmer.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So Cecil Rhodes has become the Prime Minister of Cape Colony in South Africa. And he is this gentleman who's pictured up there lounging on that couch in his South African set up there. And he is also the picture that is in that political cartoon. Did you have a question, man?
Yeah, so when you mean like Dutch descendant, like do you mean
Danish? Yeah, no. So remember, they had sent people down there so that their trade ships could have a place to dock as they moved around the tip of Africa.
So what they do with like the Africans over there?
Oh, well, it's they just were living among them, like old imperialism. So they're just living
So
on
they're
the
just, like,
ports
chilling
and stuff.
there.
Yeah, they didn't take over. They were just immigrated there. They were at the ports. They're farming. They're working
So, like,
right
no
alongside.
war type.
Nope. Old imperialism was good. New imperialism can be bad. So we have Cecil Rhodes, who's now the Prime Minister of Cape Colony in South Africa, and he is going to come up with this dream, and it's going to be called Cape to Cairo. So from the Cape of South Africa, so see the political cartoon, all the way to Cairo in Egypt. They want Britain to be straddling the African continent. Okay. They want to hold the whole thing. Screw cutting this up into pieces for everyone. I'm taking the whole cake with me. That's his dream. And so you will need to be able to recognize this political cartoon and what it means. This is Cecil Rhodes. This is the Cape to Cairo dream. I would not be surprised I would be surprised if you did not see this on the AP exam. It's a very popular political cartoon to emphasize this time period. And so what's going to happen is we have the original Dutch people there. We have Cecil Rhodes, who has become the Prime Minister. Yes, does that?
Yeah. Is there a reason that Coming 2012 was written underneath the Cecil Rhodes political?
Yeah, it's almost like
Oh,
I was like after that.
yeah. It was used in context to something else. I just couldn't find a small enough. Yeah.
Whatever happened.
Yeah, it wasn't a good context, yeah. Yeah.
That one helps down
No, it's unrelated. I couldn't find an image of this that would squish down and get everything else I wanted on this slide without being really distorted. Sorry. You guys can never read anything on this board, and that's the one thing. Good job, Sam. Way to be paying attention. Not related at all. I'm not trying to promote any secret agenda, I swear. So, what happens? We have Cecil Rhodes, we have Cape to Cairo Dream. Diamonds and gold then are discovered in the Transvaal region, and Rhodes wanted to extend his influence there, but the Boers controlled the region. And what are the Boers? Dutch descendants, okay? So, the Boers are actually really successful. They've been there. They have supporters. They've lived there for a long time. They know the area. They are initially successful in repelling the British troops. They're winning. But then something kind of wonky happened, like something weird, like you just don't expect to have to talk about this in the context. And so we have this telegram sent. How many things in history have started over a telegram? I'm telling you. So the Kruger telegram of 1902, Kaiser Wilhelm, our German, remember the guy with the withered arm and always wore the military suits and obsessed with swords? Wilhelm II dispatches a telegram to the Dutch descendants and says, congratulations for whooping up on the British without needing our help. That's awesome. So he's pretty much saying, we would have given you our assistance. Glad you beat the British. Maybe if they keep coming at you, where are you going to turn, right? So this telegram gets out, like word of mouth, all over the place. And anger at Germany from Britain starts to spread. Like German people living in Britain, they're like breaking their shop windows and they're like rioting them and scaring the crap out of families. So this causes hostility between Germany and Britain, namely Britain angry at German because of this telegram. And so does anybody know who Wilhelm II's grandmama is? Queen Victoria. So Queen Victoria of Britain is going to send her grandson a nice little letter demanding that he apologize because this is stirring up all kinds of crap. And he pretty much does. I mean, it's his grandma, and his grandma's Queen Victoria, and so I would totally apologize. So he says, it was misinterpreted. That's not how I meant it. It was like, yeah. And so he apologizes, and it's going to kind of ease things for a second, kind of quells all of this anger. But this is, you might want to note here, a lot of this residual anger is going to cause Anglo-German rivalry up to World War I and end World War I. This one little letter by a grandson that Grandmama does not approve of. And so I included on here because a lot of you had Edmodo me questions about Queen Victoria. That is a representation of her family tree there. And so Queen Victoria at the bottom, and then just how many descendants of hers are in Europe's monarchy scheme. Like we talked about Nicholas II and his wife Alexandria and their son Alexei, who has hemophilia that comes from Queen Victoria's bloodline because women are carriers but don't have it, but it can be passed on through their bloodline. And so she, like everywhere related throughout Europe. So keeps tying herself in. Yeah.
Only the general population at the time knew that
Yeah.
all their leaders were somehow related. They probably
They think they did, it's how you kept power in a family, yeah. That's why you married your cousin and then that guy married their cousin and keep the money everywhere. So let's turn our attention to the French. French. We're almost done. So this one's gonna go fast. Like I said, and Kyler asked me earlier, the French are actually going to hold the most land in Africa, but it's not the greatest land. Like, they were no King Leopold and rubber trees, okay? So, the French Empire. Oh, I also, on point 5 right there, 1890, Britain will also end up controlling Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Zanzibar. So they do.
Where's
Zanzibar. Yeah, East Coast. Sorry, I can't help it. That's the Jack Black. You guys sound like Jack Black.
No,
The coast, right there. So they are going to accomplish that Cape to Cairo dream. Germany is going to recognize British control of these regions in return for British recognition of German control of an island naval station in the North Sea. So it's like Germany's starting to edge their way in, guys. Be worried, be very worried. So the French Empire in Africa, now I'm on the right side. French Empire have the most land, but not the greatest land. They have Algeria, they have Tunisia. You can kind of read through all of this. Like I said, this is AP Euro, not AP Africa. So a lot of this won't be included, except you need to know who had the greatest empire, which was Britain. Who had the most land? France. And who totally screwed up the Congo? There you go. All right. Namely, Leopold II. There you go.
Funny that the name of the king was Leopold. It sounds a lot like Paul.
Yeah, that's a good way to remember him. Good advice there. North Congo Basin will also end up in the French Empire, and France will control French West Africa, including the Ivory Coast and the Sahara, and Britain will recognize these claims. In turn, if the French would recognize the British occupation of the Suez Canal. Remember that Berlin Conference. If it's been recognized, it is legit. You are okay. You have military there. You can hold it. Okay, so it's yours now. So they're starting to recognize each all over the place. And then in 1914, France will control most of Morocco. Okay, so that's all you really need to know there. Not going to go too much detail. Now, Germany. So, since Germany wasn't unified until 1871, it is late to the party. It is late to this imperialistic game, and it is not trying to be fashionably late. It is not happy about it. It wants to play. So, prior to 1884, Bismarck had not focused much of his attention on colonialism because he is more worried about what's on his back and front door, Russia and France. So he's keeping an eye on that first, and then he's going to start to worry about building an empire. So the Berlin Conference, he decides, hey, they need a mediator, someone to organize it. Let's have it in Berlin. I'll throw the party. I want to be involved. And so this is where he's going to throw his cap kind of into the ring to provide him for a more orderly conquest of Africa, because he wants to make sure Germany isn't left out. This guarantees that Germany would now be a major player in Africa, and Germany is then going to set out about to establish a number of small protectorates in Africa, just like what's a protectorate again? Yeah, land with third-party rule with obligations. There you go. That was good. That's almost in unison. We could make a group. All right, so by World War I, Germany is going to control territory in Africa 5 times larger than Germany itself. So remember, Belgium was holding territory like 40 times, 80 times itself. Germany's going to hold territory that's 5 times larger than itself. It will take Cameroon and Togoland in 1884. Germany will formally call Tanganyika the German East Africa. And then Southwest Africa also came under German control. And they will also not be the nicest of overseers. They will end up killing over 50,000 men, women, and children in a rebellion there, trying to take the area. So, yeah. So, for Najo and Maddie, on to Italy. I didn't even have a good picture to put here. So we're just going to have to talk about Maddie, the ancestor this is my first line of Italy. So Italy is the last to get to Africa because they were all busy Garibaldiing it up and getting all revolutionary. So last to participate in the scramble for Africa. They do get Eritrea on the Red Sea. It's going to be their first colony in the 1880s, and they're like, yay, we're here, we got it. So they're going to focus in their attention on Ethiopia, and they will be humiliatingly defeated by trying to take, like, epic, I wrote the words epic fail right here. I couldn't even, there's just no words. I'm sure Najo could tell. Najo, fill us in with some words.
Well, by the tank drivers, I meant World War II. I thought we were talking about
Oh.
World War II's invasion of Ethiopia. Which
Oh,
was
that's
success.
equal, yeah,
Yeah.
but still, yeah. Darn, I was wondering, okay, will you hold on to your beloved childhood stories for us when we get there then?
Yeah, those were the stories that my dad.
You're thinking like Mussolini and,
stuff like that.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bummer. I was amped too. We're just going to have to rely on Maddie's diehard Italian side here to push us through, okay? So, Italy became the first and only European country to suffer a defeat by the Africans. 6,000 I didn't want to say it, but I was like, but I typed it there, so I have to say it. So, 6,000 Italian troops will be killed, thousands will be taken prisoner, but they will be back, Maddie, to fight another day. Mussolini
Italy will
will.
never be a major fighting power. They haven't been since the Roman Empire, and they will never, ever, like, for the history of the earth.
There we go.
Say that, 'cause then the Italians are gonna lose War III.
You know what happened when I said you don't need to know the battles of the Crimean War because stuff is just going to spark again. Like, Lord, yeah, we need to be careful in this. We're editing that out of this podcast before we cause any more damage. So Mussolini will seek to rectify this humiliating defeat by conquering Ethiopia in 1935. I'm not going into detail with it right now because we're not there yet. That's a long time ahead. So anyway, Libya will be taken from the Turks in 1912, and that is my talk on Italy. Portugal is going to, I don't think I even have a slide. I do, it's on this slide. Portugal is going to control Angola and Southwest Africa and force the people there to accept what amounted to slavery. Okay? So we're going to end there because that's the end of Africa. Well, we stopped a lot. We asked a lot of questions, but that's okay.
We asked about a good question.
Yeah.
Wait, is that part
I'm always willing
the
to
end
stop.
of part 2?
That's the end of part 1. Part 2 picks up at the new imperialism in Asia. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have the time right for you on the video because it should be not that long of a time. Like I said, one question is coming from the Asia part because this is AP Euro. And really, I just need you to know, like, Opium Wars is going to involve Britain. I need you to know the Boxer Rebellion. But you don't really have to know all these outcomes and everything except they're going to lead up to World War I. And that's why they're relevant. I do want you to pay attention. On the very last page, I did put opponents of imperialism. So these are anti-imperialists. Karl Marx, J.A. Hobson, and Lenin are going to be our opponents. So we're going to start to see anti-imperialism camps pop up. Circle J.A. Hobson. Yeah. Vladimir Lenin of Russia. So J.A. Hobson, circle him. He is the most prominent of the anti-imperialists, and it is his work that is going to divide this camp of people who think, yay, like Rudyard Kipling, like it is our burden, it is something we must do, and people that say, are you crazy? Are you seeing what they're doing to these people? So you need to know J.A. Hobson. I will let you know right now, I'm going to pause this, what exact minute you need to start the video on. My video was only 40 minutes for block 1B, but they hadn't finished Russia yet. They had only gotten up to the Congo with me in this one, and they hadn't done any of Asia. And so you have far more covered with me in class than they did. So I'm going to pause this right now.